Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're hailing from. Welcome to the latest Cube by Example show. I am Chris Short, joined by the one and only Mina Kamarek. I can't say your name. Hi, Mina. Sorry. It's been a long past 3 days for me. I've gone without power, cell service, or internet for almost 2 days, and getting back into the groove of things, from going from like glamping to interneting, is really, really like different.
But look how young he looks, right? It's like when a president leaves office, and they kind of like lose so much of the gray, like you look lovely. It's like you're reborn.
I know my wife said this weekend was like 2 weeks and 3 days. So I don't disagree, but thank you.
And I'm Langdon White, also the host of another show called The Level Up Hour. And this is a show that we do to try to give you so we recently launched this Cube by Example website to try to connect people into, understanding Kubernetes. And so hopefully from a pretty introductory perspective, but really to try to take you through quite a long way. And there's and what we're trying to do with the site is actually support multiple learning styles, right? So there's written stuff, there's video stuff, and then we also are trying to give you what I think is one of the things really important about a software project, which is to understand where it's going, or like what its ethos is, and the reason is because it's much easier to make a decision about, like, should you commit to this thing if you can say, oh, this seems like it's aligned to where I want to be and where the project wants to be in 5 years, right? So it's much simpler to make choices that if you can kind of understand, like, I refer to it probably incorrectly as like the philosophy behind the project. And so we're doing that a few ways. One, Mina provides us with regular kind of news updates on the site, so that you can kind of get a smattering of what's going on, as well as some recommendations about what to kind of follow to try to get that philosophy ethos part of it. But we also do this show. It's called the KBE Insider, and here's where we try to interview people on the show who we think are having a pretty strong impact on the Kubernetes project. And so what we want to hear from them is, what is their vision for the future of Kubernetes, so that we can say, okay, if I take this person's vision and that person's vision and that person's vision, I can come to an amalgam of where I can align my work or my projects or my IT department or whatever with where I understand Kubernetes to be going. Because the people who really know where Kubernetes is going are people who are typing in the code, not the analysts, not the pundits and all that stuff. So that's what we're trying to do with the show. And today we invite Elana Hashman, and we will ask her to introduce herself in a few minutes. But before we do that, we have a little news segment where Mina gives us an update first on how to pronounce her last name, but then also what's going on in the Kube community since our last episode. In our last episode, we run the show the last Tuesday of every month. So we've done one real episode so far. We also did a behind the scenes episode where we kind of get into more detail on what I just explained. So we'd love you to watch those two, and obviously come back next Tuesday, a month, on the last Tuesday of the month. And as we don't say often enough, click like and subscribe. That's how we can show that we're performing. Exactly. Thank you, Elana. It's show how we're performing on the show, and so we can kind of continue to have the time to be able to dedicate to this. So Mina, why don't you take it away, and we'll continue from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. If you've been with us before, you've probably seen my face before. I'm Mina Karamercan. It actually means black coral in Turkish. Fun fact, my last name. It's a little hard to pronounce, I know, but
and to be honest, my Southern public school background and education, I will completely blame that. So I didn't start traveling the world until after.
My first name is Langdon. I get a lot of problems as well.
But yeah, I'm here to give you a highlight of what we've put up on the KBE news section of the Q by Example website. So we're going to start off with an article we put about 3 to 4 weeks ago. It said Kubernetes complexity slowing adoption of containers. So what this means, there was a survey of 1,000 cloud developers, and it found that the steep learning curve, and about 57% of those 1,000 cloud developers said this, new terminology as well as new concepts and commands are the most significant challenges they faced. What's more, many were frustrated by how long it takes to spin up a working Kubernetes cluster. So this is a pretty important finding. 1,000 people. Definitely go check this article out if you are interested in hearing more about it. We also highlighted the top 10 hottest Kubernetes startups of 2021. I'm not going to list all of those right now, but I will put all of the links to these articles in the chat after I'm done. So definitely go check them out. We also talked about how Kubernetes and containers are powering tomorrow's applications. Digital businesses today are leveraging cloud native technologies to power their application stacks, and Kubernetes and containers are essential in enabling them to achieve this. The author highlights a couple of points in this article: importance of data centricity when it comes to businesses staying ahead today. Container adoption speaks for itself. According to a 451 research, 95% of new apps are developed in containers today. Microservices and containers are a perfect match, as containers are the perfect building block for microservices. They present a lightweight and consistent environment for microservices that can follow the application from the developer's desktop to testing to final deployment. Packaging applications with their dependencies are the trend today. That's what people are doing, and not all container services are equal. Kubernetes is a black hole of unpredictable spend, according to a new CNCF report in association with the FinOps Foundation, shows that costs of Kubernetes are rising and companies struggle to predict them accurately. Spending on Kubernetes was up, according to the survey, with 67%, reporting an increase of 20% or more over the last 12 months. And about 10% of those companies spend more than $1 million per month on their deployments, which is pretty crazy if you ask me. And then we looked at the future of cloud computing and what trends will impact your organization. One, managed Kubernetes in the cloud will be a really, really big focus. Two, the idea of multi-cloud will become a lot clearer. Three, serverless computing will quicken and simplify cloud operations. Four, managed open source services are going to be in the forefront of things. 5, service mesh networking will become the norm. 6, automation and policies will ease cloud management. And 7, better integration between cloud and data centers is something that we're going to see. We've also seen some Kubernetes security issues through different articles. Nearly all survey respondents in a recent State of Kubernetes security report cited at least one incident stemming from Kubernetes security issues. Again, I will drop the links into these articles, but we also have seen some Kubernetes clusters attacked via misconfigured Argo workflow instances. Security researchers are warning. Argo Workflows is an open source container native workflow engine for orchestrating parallel jobs on Kubernetes to speed up processing time for compute intensive jobs like machine learning and big data processing. So these are pretty important. I definitely encourage you guys to check these out. There was a lot of noise going around this on threat posts and social media as well. We've seen that IBM plans Boxboat acquisition to continue their hybrid cloud business expansion strategy in a push to further expand their hybrid cloud services business. We've also seen 2 pretty important announcements coming from Kubernetes. So I really want to highlight these as they were announced in the last couple of weeks. On April 23rd, 2021, the release team merged a Kubernetes enhancement proposal, changing the Kubernetes release cycle from 4 releases a year to 3 releases a year. So Kubernetes 1.23 will be the final release of the 2021 calendar year. And the major change end users will experience is a slower release cadence and a slower rate of enhancement graduation. Kubernetes release artifacts, release notes, and all other aspects of any given release will stay the same. Another announcement coming from Kubernetes is, as the Kubernetes API evolves, APIs are periodically reorganized or upgraded. When APIs evolve, the old APIs they replace are deprecated and eventually removed. Kubernetes 1.22, due for release in August 2021, will remove a number of those deprecated APIs. These are beta APIs that you can use in current supported Kubernetes versions, and they're already deprecated. The reason for all these removals is that they have been superseded by a newer, stable GA API. Like I said, I will drop the links in for all of these articles, but we are updating our KBE news section every Tuesday. So definitely go and check it out today as well, and see and be in the loop on what's going on in the Kubernetes world. Kristen Langdon, back to you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
I also have to comment, because you didn't cover this part of it, but the best part about the Argo CD hack was that, of course, it's Bitcoin mining.
Right. It's always Bitcoin mining.
Which I thought was impressive. Way back in the day, OpenShift.com, when it was OpenShift 2, one of the biggest challenges was basically it offered, kind of free, things like containers, but they used to be called gears, to, the general public. And basically they had to have a constant watching for Bitcoin mining. And that was a big chunk of the effort involved. So again, we'd like to welcome Elana. Thank you so much for appearing on the show. Thank you, Mina. And if you could give us maybe a brief introduction to yourself. We know you work for Red Hat, so that means we have no idea what your title is or who you work for, because it changes too regularly to keep track of. So if you could just kind of give us a little bit of that, and then maybe we can talk a little bit about Kubernetes.
Yeah, absolutely. Elana Hashman. I currently work for the OCP Node team as a principal software engineer. And previously, I was on the Azure Red Hat OpenShift team as a principal SRE and one of the tech leads. So that was only a recent change. I only moved over to the OpenShift engineering side of the house in January of this year.
So they got tired of you complaining and said, now you have to come fix it?
No, not at all. It's a long story. We can catch up over coffee.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
But I'm really happy that I'm not on call anymore. I think that's probably like, as a, dyed in the wool boff, that is my biggest takeaway.
Right. I one of my first kind of job offers out of college was working on IBM's level 2 global backbone for their internet. 2 weeks out of the month, you weren't allowed to be more than 2 hours away from the office.
Wow.
Because they would get calls like, "Oh, San Francisco's down. Please fix."
Oh no! Yeah, our SLA was like 15 minutes or something like that. So
it's only gotten worse. That was many years ago, because I so we kind of have like some questions we like to ask kind of all of our guests. And so why don't we start there? And so kind of, what brought you to kind of contributing to open source in the first place?
That's a long story. When I was like, I don't know, a young lass, I discovered IRC at some point in like the mid-aughts, and a friend was like, "Oh, have you like seen this Linux thing?" And I'm like, "No, what's that?" And they're like, "Here, I'll let you access one of my machines." I was like, "What?" And so I don't know, I had like some Windows machine and PuTTY accessation to this Linux box. I was like, "Well, this is cool, but like, what am I supposed to do with this?" But like it being, I don't know, like probably 2006 or something like that, I was installing, I think it was Ubuntu Hardy Heron 6.06. And so like I was like, okay, great, like I think the sound worked, but the Wi-Fi did not. And so I got to fight with NDIS wrapper, and it was a mess. And that was my introduction to open source software. But like prior to that, I had been using Firefox, which I thought was super cool. And I was mostly just kind of a user for the longest time. And then in university, I like went to some conference, and there was like an open source themed lunch table. So I sat down at the table, and I'm like checking my email or something like that. And the guy next to me, he like looks over my shoulder, he says, "Is that Alpine?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Hi, my name's Ashish. I'm the Alpine maintainer in Debian." And I was like, oh my God.
That's awesome.
And so there was an open source day at the conference that year, and he's like, you should come and contribute to this cool project called Open Hatch. I'm like, well, like I've been using open source for so long, but like I don't really know, like I matched to like contribute to WordPress or something, but I don't like know PHP. He's like, no, come contribute to Open Hatch. And so I did, and I started fighting with this bug, which he's like, oh yeah, pretty easy bug. And so I started digging, no, it's not an easy bug. But I ended up
as so many bugs are.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, oh yeah, I'll just work around this real quick.
Totally easy bug. You can fix it today. No, did not happen. But I ended up learning Python, and I became Open Hatch's GSOC student. So I completed Google Summer of Code, and like fast forward, then I started working for Rackspace, and I got more involved in like other Pythonic things. I was working with Paul Kerrer, so I wasn't like directly contributing to cryptography, but I was encouraged to do things that might help cryptography, and that got me like sucked into the world of like, well, why don't you try out this many Linux thing and like help us build wheels better? And then you know how that goes. Like you stare into the void and you become an expert on the void, and suddenly I'm like the only person who understands how this symbol versioning logic goes for like the ABI compatibility and audit wheel. And yeah, then I maintained that for a while. I still participate with the Python Packaging Authority. At the same time, we used a lot of Clojure at that job. So I was working on Clojure things, and someone was like, hey, we really need like this thing, which is the build tool for Clojure called Line Again. Like someone should really package that for Debian. I'm like, that sounds like a terrible idea. Like what a bunch of unpaid work. Who would be so dumb as to like go and waste all this time working on that? Yeah, I was nerd sniped into it. So I guess like however many years later, I became a Debian developer. I'm now serving on the Debian technical committee. And yeah, I don't know.
And are maintaining Clojure at this point, right?
Yeah, I'm the maintainer of Clojure, Line Again, and like, I don't know, a bunch of random like Clojure libraries that are used to build either. And the exciting thing is that we have a GSOC student now working on packaging things that I don't have time for. So it's like, it's come full circle.
Right. See, I mean, that's the key, right? Is bring them in young, right, and get them into the mix, and then you can finally hand some things off.
That's the dream.
Right. I still maintain though, because of your maintenance of Clojure, that you are a closet Lisp lover and therefore Emacs
I'm not closeted.
Oh.
I am like way out of the closet.
All right.
Casually flashing my Red Hat Pride mug.
Oh yeah, sorry. I was actually using the more general term of just secret Lisp user.
No. Nobody uses Lisp in secret. It's like if somebody uses Arch Linux, because they've told you they use Arch.
Right. It's I'm blanking on the joke, but it's the how do you
vegans?
know? Well, yeah. How do you know if someone's vegan or does the what's the exercise?
Keto? Is it the keto diet now too?
I was thinking the exercise.
CrossFit.
CrossFit. Yeah. Just talk to them and they'll tell you.
They'll tell you, right?
Yeah. So it was very funny. I totally agree with you. Actually, I would say Scheme is more like that than Lisp even. But they do have a whole book called The Little Schemer, which is amazing. All right, so bringing it back to the focus of the actual show. All right, so okay, we see how you kind of got into open source, right? More than just software per se. But so what brought you to kind of Kubernetes? Where did that happen?
So when I was at Rackspace, I was working in managed security. I've worn many hats in my software career. And so I was working in managed security, and I was on what we called our defensive infrastructure team. And we had a bunch of containers. And at that time, we were running with like CoreOS nodes and like using Fleet to manage them. And I was a little bit of the opinion, this is a bit miserable. And we also had like VMs that we were managing. And I thought I was learning about this new hotness called Kubernetes. There were various flavors of Kubernetes. I heard about OpenShift at the time. But I thought as reading like white papers and things like that, I was like, wow, we can save 30% compute overhead if we don't virtualize, and I would love to not have to deal with all of the overhead of dealing with VMs. If you look on, like, say, the Debian bug tracker, you will find that my first contribution directly to Debian was complaining that libvirt was broken. So, yeah.
I bet that was fun.
Yeah. So, like, you know, it's like this is like this new thing, and like maybe this is going to be kind of like the future of Linux. Like, we've got these like all these cool abstractions to like sit on top of the kernel abstractions that are containers. I have been using LXC for years at that point.
Okay.
And like wasn't really necessarily as much, like, we were building Docker stuff, but I wasn't necessarily like a Docker enthusiast. I was like, okay, well, Docker is like a means to the end, but like I don't really like fighting with Docker Compose very much. So I thought, oh, Kubernetes, this is going to be the next thing. And this was in like, I don't know, 2017 or something like that. But alas, my team at Rackspace wasn't really doing Kube stuff, so I started interviewing to like try to find a job where I could do Kubernetes stuff. And I landed at a financial company where they were like, so we've got like these gigantic Kubernetes clusters, which, by the way, we're a finance company, so for us they're like tiny, but we've got these gigantic on-premise Kubernetes clusters. You know, I was working with like, you know, 10,000 core clusters, and those were toy clusters. And they're like, we need somebody to like help our ops team administer these things, because we have a bunch of software engineers who don't have a lot of operational background. So I was like, let's do it. And so I spent a year there, starting with like, I think when I got there, they had just upgraded from Kube 1.5 to 1.8, and everything was custom patched, and we had like Kerberos all over the place. And I got there, and they were like, so we'd like some metrics for our clusters. And, you know, like there's this heapster thing that like we really need better instrumentation. And so I was like, okay. And I like looked at various solutions, and I was looking at various vendor products, and I was like, huh, these all just kind of like sit on top of like the open source stack. Like there's no particular secret sauce other than, you know, the, like, from what I could see playing around with these trial products at that time in like 2018, it was pretty early. So it's like, well, we weren't really using a unified pane of glass anyway, so there wasn't a lot of benefit to having these things going into a vendor dashboard. So they were like, can you make some metrics work? And so I started playing around with all these open source tools. We had Prometheus. I spent a bunch of time working on Kube state metrics, performance testing Kube state metrics, because it turns out our clusters were big. And I ended up getting involved in SIG instrumentation as a result. And for the longest time, I was like, you know, kind of there as like sort of an opsy focused user. I wasn't doing very much in terms of code, but I did submit a 2-line patch that like broke the entire world, trying to like trying to fix like label normalization, because I'm like, well, I'm doing this like horrendous join in order to like make these metrics match these metrics, and they don't conform to the Kubernetes like instrumentation guidelines. So like, could we fix these? They're like, sure, submit a pull request. Well, it was more like make a cap and then submit a pull request. It took a very long time, but yeah. So now I chair the instrumentation SIG as of March of last year. And recently, since I joined the Node team at Red Hat, I've also been spending a bunch more time on SIG Node.
That's cool. So let's continue talking maybe about instrumentation, right? I think, you know, there's a lot there, right? I mean, because trying to understand the environment, particularly when you talk about anything that's cloud native, is often one of the hardest parts, right? You know, with the second you introduce these microservice things, right, the problem is trying to understand what's actually happening at any given moment. So what do you see, like, or what do you feel like is the kind of biggest, you know, change that you've seen while you've been involved in that SIG? And what do you think is the next kind of one you think is coming?
So I don't profess to be an instrumentation thought leader, but I would say there are like 2 big things that are in flight right now that I am very excited about that I think will significantly improve instrumentation. So one is that API server tracing is happening. So this means if like a given request goes into the API server, you can generate a span which shows like, I spent time here, I spent time here, I spent time here. Oh, look, this one's very wide. Maybe we should see why we're having performance issues here, and so on and so forth. I dealt with a lot of API server perf issues in a past life, and it was really, really difficult to tell where like things were blocking and why we were having performance issues. And when you're dealing with like just black box monitoring tools, like from the outside, where I'm just like, running IO-stat, trying to see what's going on with etcd.
Yes.
Like it's nice to have the sort of internal like white box sort of like representation of instrumentation where you're like, aha, it is stuck here. Why is it stuck here? Oh, because it's blocking on systemd because it's trying to write all of these logs into the database, but like, why is it logging 100 megabyte thing? I don't know. And that is why my command is blocking. So that's the sort of thing that hopefully tracing will be great. And we've just finally, I'm so happy, had that land in 122 alpha API server tracing. David Ashbull has been working on this since I joined like the instrumentation SIG in like 2018. So that's super, super exciting. The other thing in flight that I think will be super helpful, right now, Kubernetes generates a lot of logs. And as a systems administrator, like it's all syslog, and syslog is kind of a pain to deal with. And it makes it really hard because you have to do like post-processing with regexes and like all sorts of other stuff to try to like do correlations. It's not like, here's a pod and now I can trace that pod, or here's a request ID and now I can trace that request ID. And so like that's always been like an issue in upstream Kube. And like way back in 2018, I was like, could we have structured logs, please? Like I thought
at
we
the
were
very
doing
least.
At the very least.
like 5 years ago, I thought this was a thing, but apparently not. And so, yeah, actually, there's we just formed, and I helped sort of sponsor the creation of it since SIG Instrumentation was the SIG that kicked off the effort. A structured logging working group. So like it's much larger an effort versus like a single cat. Yeah, it's been quite a wild ride. So like in 121, I spent a bunch of time working on trying to migrate the kubelet to structured logs, and then ensuring that we had like automated tooling that it wouldn't regress. And so that's been awesome. Like kubelet, it's on structured logging, but structured logging as an effort is still in alpha, and we still have every other component to migrate. So that's been a super cool thing that happened. And I think that will be great in terms of sort of future instrumentation stuff. Like I'm, old school sysadmin. I just want tools that like can help me do my job. And so it's like really like, back to basics.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want my metrics to be accurate. I want my logs to be aggerable, and I want like traces and events that are useful. So
I totally hear you. A long time ago now, like 2000 or so, maybe before that, a friend of mine and I had built a system that did Visual Basic over HTTP, and one of the things that was most important about it was actually doing a visualized logger to show where it's stuck, right? Because it's just so necessary. One thing I did want to quickly kind of sidebar here a little bit. You've used the term cap twice. And could you give a little bit of to our audience, just it's a lot of new people. What does that mean?
Sorry, cap?
Yeah, I thought you said
cap theorem.
Oh, I don't think I said anything about cap theorem.
Oh, I thought so. Maybe I misheard you.
I mean, I love the cap theorem, but
that's
just a joke in my Twitter bio.
Right, that's a whole nother discussion anyway. If you do want to know more about cap theorem, go. The Wikipedia page is actually remarkably good. I would definitely go search that. All right, well, maybe it'll come up again, or maybe I misheard you. So why don't we move on from there and talk about a little bit. So, we talked a lot about instrumentation, which seems like, you're very passionate about. And now you're working with the Node SIG, which, if you could tell us a little bit about what you're working with there and what you see there, and actually if you could explain what the Node SIG is, that would be a good start as well.
I would be delighted.
That one is, for me at least, the naming and what it is, like, have a very hard time sticking in my brain.
I will try to break it down in a way that will stick, maybe.
Yeah, hopefully.
So Kubernetes, do I have anything with the Kubernetes logo on it? It's like handy if I do, but
I
don't think I do.
Kubernetes
I like pointing at it.
Spinner?
Oh wait, no, I do. Thank you, Josh Burkus. So this is
there you go.
Very nice.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay, so you see Kubernetes. This is a Kubernetes cluster, the logo, right? So the hub, that's the API server. And then all of these other things are controllers talking to the API server. Everything goes through the API server. So a node is a special controller. And why do we need a node? Because we want to run workloads. So the node, the kubelet is the thing that turns something into a Kubernetes node. It is a special controller, and all controllers in Kubernetes, they tend to operate on a certain object. In this case, the kubelet cares about pods. So the kubelet is the thing that natively understands pods and what to do with them and all of that jazz. So SIG node is responsible for the node. And when we say the node, we mean like the kubelet really, and other things that interact with like node lifecycle. So SIG node is a really interesting and large SIG to be in because, you know, the most minimal API or the most minimal Kubernetes cluster doesn't have any nodes. You can just have an API server and an etcd. You don't have to have any nodes. Like that works. You can talk to it. It won't do anything. You could put as many pods into that thing as you want. It won't do anything, but like that's a perfectly legitimate Kubernetes cluster. But like nodes are where the interesting stuff happens, I think. And so that was kind of what like interested me in SIG node. Like if I care about the sort of like Kubernetes as like nice abstractions to like parallelize Linux on a distributed scale, nodes where it's at.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So
yeah,
what am I working on in SIG node?
I think that was a very good explanation.
Yeah. Oh, great. I'm glad that was helpful.
No, like that was solid.
Yeah. So what are you working on?
I am working on many things, but probably like my top 3 things are, so I'll start with the least exciting maybe and go to the most exciting. Least exciting, making sure it's not broken. So like working on deflaking tests and paying down tech debt and long-term tech strategy and that kind of thing. That has been really interesting working on the last 2 releases. Node was like a little bit stagnant for a while. And so like one of the things that I've been looking at is like, how do we pay down that tech debt? How do we make Node go faster? How do we ensure that like features are happening and that kind of thing? And so like one of the most important things you can get from that is like, are our tests working? Are our test suites running the way that we expect them to, and so on? And like, are they giving us good signal? Because we have a bunch of test suites right now, for example, that are failing all the time. So it's like, is it failing because of something I did or because it was already failing? Like, I don't know. We can't rely on them to be passing as is. And so, you know, we've been spending a bunch of work on that. Second thing,
I wanted to interject there. So least
Sure.
exciting for you, perhaps. I don't know. Very exciting, usually for users of Kubernetes. That if the test, the more automated the testing, the better the testing, the less problems that consumers have, right?
Well, I would hope so. I mean, in a lot of these cases, it's not even like I think it is, you know, maybe borderline boring. Not because like I love testing. I'm a huge testing proponent. One of my challenges with upstream Kubernetes is that like the test coverage, like if you go look at like Kubernetes issue 1, kubelet like unit test coverage is lousy. Like that is like the history of Kubernetes right there, you know, encoded in issue 1. And so like this is something that I'm definitely passionate about, but a lot of like for this stuff, it's not like exciting. It's not like adding new tests. It's just like, are the tests running? Are the tests passing? Is there a silly reason why they're failing? A lot of the flakes are there's a silly reason why the test is failing. And so those aren't like that exciting to...
Typos, yay!
Well, and
flakes,
related...
like timeout periods, you know, that kind of thing. We are also definitely uncovering real bugs. So those are good to fix.
Well, another thing that's kind of related to another question we like to ask is from a getting involved perspective, I'm sure it's doing like amazing things for your understanding of the code base that you're now working with. Right. You know, like that's one of the greatest things about kind of fixing tests when you're new to a project is like you really have good tactical things to kind of help you learn it, which is hard to do in kind of the abstract, you know, when you're kind of coming into a project. At least that's been my experience.
Yeah. So I've been working on, for example, I spent all day working on a failing test that was like failing in part because the node was running out of disk space. And so I did like possibly the most horrible thing I have ever submitted to Kube CI, which was like I sent in a work in progress PR with like at the beginning of the kubelet, I modified it to like shell out to DF and dump everything. And because the kubelet in certain test suites, it like constantly is restarting the kubelet because of the dynamic kubelet config. And so like you'll see the kubelet restarting, and therefore every time it restarts, it'll dump like DF again. And so, yeah, that was, we were able to therefore figure out that a test that was filling up the drive was failing and not cleaning up. And that was what was causing all the rest of the tests to fail due to like being out of disk space. So like you will learn how to do, I guess, horrendous things to Kubernetes that shouldn't be done if you go down this path.
I will say checking storage, running out of storage is one of my go-to defaults for when I can't figure out why this thing is broken. And half the time it's the problem.
No space left on device. Right. But like I was like really puzzled by this because I was like, how, like this isn't how previously. How is it possible? Right. And so my suspicion was, oh, maybe it's just out of inodes. So I was like, well, we don't dump any inode information anywhere. So like, let me dump that. And like, no, it was actually like out of space. My inode hypothesis totally wrong. But that's why you search.
Right. All right. So what are the other two?
So second thing is node velocity. So like one of the things that I did when I joined SIG Node is I was like, oh my God, we have so many PRs. We have so many issues. How are we possibly going to get to all of these things? Like SIG Node has something like 200 active PRs at any given time. Wow. That's a lot of PRs.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I can't review.
It's a lot of rebasing.
Yeah. And so like one of the first things that I did is I was like, I can't grok this. I'm gonna like make a little board so I can like visualize like the things I need to pester people to approve, the things that are like ready for me to put an LGTM on, the things I should not look at, and like the things that somebody needs to look at. And so I put together this node triage board when I joined the SIG, and then I like showed it to some people, and they're like, this is super useful. Make this like accessible to the whole SIG. So I did. And so now we've been using that for node triage, and that has been making it a lot easier to deal with like our glut of PRs that we deal with on a given basis. We previously had a board for just test and CI things only, but because it was just test and CI things only, it meant most of our PRs weren't actually like getting looked at in the same way. So I made sure everything else went on a separate board. And then I also, when I joined, I was like, oh my God, Node has 500 bugs. Like, what am I gonna do with that? So this past release, I ran a Node bug scrub, just like in any other project, Debian bug scrub, OpenHatch bug scrub. My OpenHatch GSOC project was a bug scrub tool. So I have many years of experience running bug scrubs, and I was like, let's just get them done. Look at everything, and we'll see where things go from there. And then at least, things will be all updated, even if we're still not necessarily like triaging incoming stuff regularly. Did that closed like 160 bugs. So
that's a bunch. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel really bad because I want to be able to look at every single incoming bug. I don't have the time, especially because a lot of them are somebody asking a Kubernetes question. And like it's not a real bug, and therefore I can't really like spend like 3 hours of support every day looking at their questions and trying to answer. Like there's just not enough hours a day. I wish.
Yeah. So we should have like a high school class that is like filing bugs. Like it'd be really nice. If we could...
I don't blame them, but like I mean the number of times I say like this is a support request, please go to our forums. It's like. There's a button that says, please go to the forums when you try to file a support request. But they're like, no, it's a bug because it's not working. I'm like, no, it's not working because PEBCAC.
Right, exactly. Exactly. One of the most underused phrases in technology. Yes.
Problem exists between keyboard and chair for viewers unfamiliar. But yeah, I mean, I'm often the problem, to be clear.
But I suffer from PEBCAC myself, yes. But that doesn't mean that things that I have worked on, someone else is not.
Like this would be a really good place for people who are looking to get involved, because like this is something that I'm like, I don't have the time to spend on this. But like if somebody could flag me the real things and be really nice to the people who like are submitting questions, maybe try to help them. Like I always try to at least point them in the right direction when I close them. But yeah, it's
which is to be frank, right? Like that is the right answer. That's how you build a community. That's how this is how you be kind of a good person in software. But at the same time, to your point, that's a reduction in the amount of time that you can spend on other things, right? And so we always need help, I think, in kind of doing the things that actually require human components more than they require technical components. It's like, if you have a little bit of Kubernetes expertise, go try to find the places where you can say, oh, I recognize that this isn't actually a bug, and I recognize that, oh, I've run into this problem before. Let me go help that person, so that somebody who is working in engineering or QE or whatever can.
From my ops background, I gotta say, like, Kubernetes upstream, full of developers, very few QE people, very few operational people. Like, people think, oh, but like, there's not really anywhere for me to contribute code. Trust me, does not matter.
You use a lot of stuff.
We can find you a place, trust me.
You will have a superpower if you come at this from an operational perspective, or like a QE perspective in upstream, because we just don't have a lot of those sorts of folks working on things. And like, I can tell you, if we had someone who was like sort of watching, say, like the bug backlog and like helping folks and like flagging real bugs, so that like other people, like devs, don't have to spend their time like verifying that things are actually bugs and then not actually fixing things. Like, if we had more folks who are like, I can't fix the thing, but it's like, don't worry, I could fix the thing, but I don't have time to figure out how it's broken.
Right.
So yeah, like, it's a superpower, and I'm like a little bit weird in that when I became chair of SIG instrumentation, like, I had like 4 lines of changes in all of Kubernetes. Like, I was an ops chair for a SIG that's like kind of owned code. Instrumentation kind of owns code. We have a small amount of code, but it's horizontal. So like, each component owns their own metrics and whatnot. We don't own them. We just try to help them out. But yeah, it was like, I was weird as like the ops person doing like cube stuff upstream, and it could be you, and it could be great. And now I guess I'm on the production readiness review team. So there you go. No rest for the wicked.
Can you give us a little bit of outline of what that is exactly?
Yeah, so every feature that's proposed to Kubernetes that is like substantial, so like might touch multiple components or might need to be life cycled from like alpha through to GA, has to go through what's called a Kubernetes enhancement proposal, or a KEP. And in the last couple of cycles, we've added this new additional review and some questions to these KEPs called production readiness. And the idea of these is to sort of like ensure that every single feature owner is thinking about how this feature will work in a running cluster, and how to deal with like upgrades and downgrades, and how to deal with like, my thing has gone wrong, what metrics or like things should I look at to figure out that it's like broken. And so that team, when it was initially envisioned, was very small. It was 3 approvers for all enhancement proposals, and we get something like 60 each cycle. So like, that's like a large workload. So I volunteered as tribute. I am now the 4th approver on this team, who will look through this and be like, yes, you have a good upgrade or downgrade strategy, or like, have you thought about this as it applies to version skew, or like, yes, this is not eligible, or no, this is applicable, and you don't have to add a metric, just like, we need a metric, because like, I don't know how this thing is working. Like, what should I look at? What are you, the author, looking at to see if this thing is working? And they're like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. I was like, great, now you're thinking about it.
Well, and to some, it's almost like kind of supporting like the user experience of Kubernetes, right? That seems like a very good thing.
We desperately need more people on this team. So
yes,
another place that sort of opsy people like me in a former life can get involved.
Well, or to some extent, or even just consumers in general, right? You don't need to be necessarily running it in production as much as kind of looking at it from a holistic perspective. So
yeah, I mean, not to open the floodgates, but like, the enhancement proposals are public. Anybody can comment on them. So like, I mean, this is maybe like another superpower when it comes to open source. Like, the people who do the things in open source, like, nobody gave them permission. Like, they just showed up.
Right.
Like, when I got involved in things, nobody knew who I was. Like, my reputation did not precede me in Kubernetes. I built one by doing the things. So that's all you got to do. Do the things.
One of the things that's actually kind of an internal Red Hat phrase that's been kind of going on. I don't know if I'm going to quote it quite right, but it's like, the person who wins is the one who writes the code. And to some extent, it's a looser version of that, which is like, you can kind of just show up and start doing stuff.
It's amazing. I wrote a blog post saying exactly that.
Right.
You have a much more defensible proposal if you have code that actually runs versus the person saying, well, I don't know if we should do that.
Or a test or a whatever.
Anything.
Like code is euphemistic for, a contribution. And I think that's really important. The key is to be polite about it. And that way, and you will, almost always get a positive response. And I think that's really important.
Just to kind of segue into the third thing that I work on.
Oh yeah, please. Yes, go ahead.
I'm working on swap support.
Okay.
So swap support is special because it didn't exist before, and now it exists. And you may ask, why did it not exist? And the answer is, nobody sat down to do the work.
Right.
There was definitely some concerns in terms of how are we going to do this in a way that's not going to blow up Kubernetes clusters? Please give us a proposal that convinces us, and then we will be happy to implement it. And that just kind of sat there. And I was like, you know what I'm passionate about? This. Because first of all, it's one of those things where you've got to take into account the needs of so many users. And so the first thing, I just spent a whole release just talking to people, being like, how you use swap? Is this document of use cases exhaustive for you? Is this going to work for you? Here's a sort of a straw man proposal. What do you think about that? And they'd be like, no, I hate this. And I'd be like, okay, what if I change this thing? Then do you still hate it? No, that's pretty good. And so on and so forth. And doing that, which was kind of very thankless behind the scenes. And then I show up with what was effectively an 80-line implementation. And everybody's clean, crisp, good merged.
Yep. Yeah.
But
a lot of it's the legwork.
Getting there, after I think the first issue from swap was in 2014. It was filed. And it took until 2021 for us to make some movement on that. So I think it's really just write the proposal, do the thing, and be open to feedback.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't ask for feedback and then be like, you know what, I don't like that feedback. I'm not going to do that thing, because then people aren't going to support you.
Right. And just because I think I know what you're talking about, but you mean swap space, memory swap?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Right.
So on a given node, people love to, use virtual memory, which is not real memory, and is usually some form of disk space. And it could be very fast disk. It could be NVMe.
That'd be awesome. Could be Optane. Who knows?
Yeah. Who knows? We don't know. It could be pretty fast. And it swap is often used for applications that, for example, have big memory startup costs that then they're never going to touch again, but they can't actually evict it from memory. Right. So we see this on virtual
Java.
Machines of various kinds, right? Java, Node, actual virtual machines like Cube and whatnot. So it could be potentially useful for virtual machine live migration, where you have to very briefly overcommit memory. All sorts of applications. This could be helpful because memory is a tight resource sometimes, especially on edge systems. Or my favorite example of an edge system, my Raspberry Pi. Don't maybe dig too much into the swap pool there, or you'll be sitting blocking for 6 years. But
exactly. One thing I wanted to kind of catch back up to. So I think I heard you saying CAP, but you were actually saying CAP. And you were talking about Kubernetes enhancement proposals.
That's earlier. The Canadian accent.
Perhaps. So
I didn't pick up on that.
Yeah. So to kind of cover that back up. All right. So kind of, I think the last question that we have time for, because we're almost out of time, is so what do you think is, kind of in Kubernetes in general, what is the thing that you're kind of most watching, or what do you think the biggest, and both from a positive, either from a positive perspective or negative, what is the, kind of the biggest challenge or the biggest thing or the biggest, awesomeness that you kind of foresee in the next, I don't know, couple of years?
So the question is, what am I watching in Kubernetes?
Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily need to be, positive. It could be negative or vice versa or both, or
the API server.
Okay.
No, you didn't get the joke. Okay.
Oh, yes. Now I get the joke. Hey, sometimes a little slow. I haven't had a lot of coffee.
It's 7 a.m. here.
Right.
No, it's fine. What am I looking? So maybe I'll go. What am I looking forward to in Kubernetes? So one thing that I have been spending a lot of time on is like trying to do knowledge sharing and uplifting new leaders in the community. So like there have been a lot of people in Kubernetes who've been around like literally day one. They've been here since the start, and they hold lots of great leadership positions. But like, I don't know, like, do you want to be doing this forever? Like I can say in instrumentation, my time is going to come. I'm not doing that job forever.
Right.
And so like, it's really important for me to be like, okay, you know, if I'm thinking like a year or two down the line, like, who's going to be doing this in the future? Is it going to be me? Do I want to keep doing this? If not, how am I setting up that person for success? And so I have done a couple of cohorts. One, I was working with a bunch of people to try to show them how to become node reviewers. So like, here's how you review SIG node PRs and that kind of thing. And the latest cohort that I've been working with, I've been training people how do you be a SIG lead, right? Because like I work in 2 different SIGs. You know, I chair instrumentation. I guess I also I'm not sure who the sub-project lead of production readiness is, but like I will often run those meetings. And then I also work in SIG node, and while like I'm not like a chair in that SIG, I'm often like running the meetings or running like the CI sub-project meetings or that kind of thing. So it's really, really important, I think, to like build and uplift this sort of like next generation that's going to be doing the work in Kubernetes. And so that I think like is really the thing. I mean, not to be like, everybody's like cheesy, like, oh, it's about the community, but like, honestly, like it's about people, you know, this is ultimately at the end of the day, this is a job. And so like people move on from thing to thing, people find new interests. And yeah, I just want to ensure that like for the time that people do spend here, they have the best experience that they possibly can. And you know, when they move on, the community will still be fine. It'll be all the better for it.
Right.
No one irreplaceable.
Yeah.
And like people say that, they're like, but like I want to be like, you know, the BDFL. Like I don't want to be a BDFL. And Cube explicitly really does not want BDFLs.
Right. Yeah. No one wants you to do that. To be honest with you.
Right. Well, I mean, even if you look at it from the, you know, there are BDFLs or whatever, like those people are still finite, right? Like, there's only so many hours in a day. Even
it's bad for them, it's bad for you, right? Because like
right.
as a BDFL, like, you know, you first of all, like there's these ridiculous crushing expectations. I've been that person. I was the sole maintainer of a thing that like the entire weight of binary Python distribution lay upon. I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like it's stressful and I don't have the time, and like I'm letting everybody down. So I quit.
Right.
I stopped doing it. You can do that. And so like, you know, I don't want to see Kubernetes do that. And so Kubernetes was founded with this like explicit anti-BDFL mission. So now we're going to see like, you know, when the rubber hits pavement, like, can we actually make this a thing? So that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. I mean, at least for me too, it's like there's so many reasons that you want a community, right? The reason that we want to do this open source thing is because we think there's value in the community. And like, if you have, you know, kind of the BDFL or just continued of the same leadership, right? You are limiting the number of perspectives that are contributing ideas, right? You're not kind of, you know, or like the more kind of correct way of saying, you know, the lottery factor, right? You know, somebody wins the lottery. And now they want to work on their pet project, you know, which is, you know, Kubernetes on Raspberry Pi only, you know, or whatever. And so they get to go off and do that because they won the lottery. You know, there's an older version of that scenario that we try not to use anymore. But you know, there's all of those reasons, right? It's not even just the simplistic kind of the like, or like, sorry, not simplistic, more like there's lots of good reasons to encourage a lot of community that are like, sometimes it's because of burnout, but sometimes it's because you want to do, you know, you really get into one little deep dark corner of node, right? And you want to stay there and finish that.
Yeah.
But what happens to all the rest of the stuff while you're doing that? So there's just so many reasons.
It's
that's
like,
so
honestly, the thing is, centralized systems like that, like, they're easier. Like
right.
It's
Proprietary
faster
software
initially,
is easier.
but but you end up, you're bandwidth constrained by that one person. It's really hard to hold them accountable because they're the ones calling all of the shots. They have effectively all of the power. And so, like, that sort of thing, it's just like, it's hard to be able to step back and move on. It's hard to be able to sort of like hand off the torch, but like, honestly, I think that, thinking about the tech and whatnot, like, the tech will move on. Like, do we need to rewrite the kubelet or something like that? Well, it depends. Like, are the right people going to be in the room to make that call? I don't know. So that's what I'm working on. And people should judge me on that in 5 years.
Right.
Nice.
Yeah, we'll maybe there should be a, part of the instrumentation SIG should be those metrics.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. If you wanted to add, is there a final thought or anything you wanted to add, or should we kind of close it down? We're just about to the top of the hour. And so I don't want to hold anything.
We do have a hard stop. So yeah.
I don't have anything else. It's been
Cool.
great speaking with you and watching the fun, like, glowy things in Chris's background.
Right.
Yeah.
We're missing the fire today, but
There's no fire today. I'm sorry. Yeah. So it's hot, and having fire in the background doesn't really work that well, right? Like, it gives me.
You could do a snowstorm or something.
But like, here's the thing: anything that's bright, like beach, snow, whatever, it just doesn't show up in the background.
Yeah.
Like, it just.
Well, you could do Boston snow, which is kind of more of a gray color. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Right. Well, again, thank you so much for giving us some of your time. We know there's a lot of PRs out there to review. We know there's a lot of KEPs to review. And so we really appreciate the time. Thanks for coming.
Cheers. It's been great speaking with you.
Awesome. Thank you. See you soon.
Bye.